In the last video, you saw my beloved F800 go for a swim, and now that we've got it running again, this video shows a little more about what happened to recover the bike and get it out of the emergency department. Watching it back, I noticed the bike actually stalled before it went under. Knowing now that it had water in the cylinders, then very likely it stalled because she drank too much, but who hasn't been there? But unless you know for sure that there's no water in the cylinder, it's best to not try and start it. There's a high risk of damage in hydrolocking. So what is hydrolocking and what does it do? An internal combustion engine works by sucking in air, combining that air with the right mix of fuel, and then compressing that mixture and blowing it up. However, water is denser than air and tends to put fires out, so when the engine brings that into the cylinder, it creates a lot more pressure trying to compress it. If you're lucky, it will just stall the engine. But if the engine is rotating at high RPM, that momentum can turn components into potatoes. And you know how much I don't like potatoes. So trying to start the bike again can be risky. If you're confident it just stalled, then restarting the engine might be okay. However, I wasn't sure, and there's a chance that it drank, so we just pushed it out. Once we're out, the first thing to do is evaluate where we're at. So I started with the airbox looking for water, which is exactly what I found. The air filter was drenched, so no doubt she drank. We still attempted to get it running again, but in hindsight, it was a risky move that could have damaged the engine. Applying a lot of torque via the starter motor with something that doesn't want to move is not great. Lifting the bike up does two things. It gets the water out of the exhaust system, but also gives you an indication of how much water is in the system. The only way to get water out of the cylinder without applying more pressure to the situation is to open the cylinder via the spark plug. The thing that would generally make it harder on our big adventure bikes is they are typically buried under a lot of emission control systems. If you have the tools to get at it, then it will just take some time. But we're on a tour and we need to get everyone else back on the road, so the trailer is the best bet and the safest. Now that we're not rushing, we can take our time to figure out what the damage is and hope that it's just a matter of water extraction.
So we disconnected the battery straight away to make sure nothing was going to short, while there might have been water still in the system.
So there are 5 places where we don't want water: the intake, the cylinder itself, the exhaust, and the crankcase and the electronics. So we focus on one of those at a time. Luckily for the last one, it was fresh water, so a little less likely to have corrosion issues down the line. The inbox coming out was a part of getting access to the engine and the spark plugs anyway, so that's where I started. The amount of water in this system was a little concerning. Pulled it out, drained it, and then put it out in the sun to dry. Next was removing the spark plugs and then turning the engine over to pump out any water in the cylinder.
Engine on. No offense, no reward.
This is done by putting the bike in top gear and then turning the rear wheel. Any water in the cylinder will have nowhere else to go other than out.
Whoa. Okay. All right, so there was some water in there. Whoa, so was that one. Oh, she's had a big night. She's throwing up all over herself.
Paper air filter would need to be replaced, but I have the uni filter, so it just gets the usual clean and re-oil.
There wasn't actually much water in the exhaust because when we tipped it up, not a lot came out the exhaust system.
It's not even wet.
However, the next big question is there anything in the oil? Normally when you check oil, you get a couple of drips, but look how runny that is. That is dripping, and it's over the max mark by a significant amount. Just purely by that running like water. Now it's not creamy at all because it hasn't been mixed, so we haven't had the engine turning over. So because it didn't start, then that's obviously a good thing in this case, because I'm going to drop the oil now, but I guarantee we're going to see a lot of water in that just by the way that oil's reacting. The good thing is that once the cylinder filled, once you started drinking water, the cylinder has hydraulic locked, which stopped the engine. Some water has managed to get down into the oil system, but because the engine wasn't turning over, it hasn't A, churned up the oil, and B, hasn't put it through the system. Oh, look at that, I can see water drops. That's, yeah, okay. Out of the way. Whoa! Yep. But it's black. Again, good sign, because it hasn't spread through the system. So I'm going to let that drain, and then I'm going to fill it with some whatever leftover I've got. That's something cheap, because I'm going to throw it away again. Get it all nice and warm, and then dump that oil and put in some fresh stuff.
I've also bought 2 new oil filters, putting one on now with the fresh oil, and then one is saved for later when we've fully flushed the system.
Fresh oil is in, the airbags back on, and I'm just going to reconnect the battery to see whether we have any electronic weirdness first. Battery's reconnected. Do we have ignition? Okay. That seems good. Electronics seem okay. We have to start this at some stage. Spark plugs are cleaned and back in. I've pumped out as much water as I can. We've checked all the intake. There's no air filter in there at the moment. Airbox is empty. It's been out in the sun drying. Checked the bottom of the exhaust. There's no water in the bottom of the exhaust. So now it's whatever's left in the cylinder. You go nothing.
Now it's time to hold our breath and hope for the best.
Ooh. Thinking about it. Oh! Too long. Let's check the oil. Yikes.
I did a total of 5 oil changes, each time getting it up to temperature and cleaning out the oil filter with fuel. This bike has a manual timing chain tensioner, so a little adjustment dials out the rattle. Then it was time for a run up to the shops, pick up a film and test out the bike in traffic, where we're checking electronics as much as we're checking the engine. Using all the gears. No lights, no warnings. Touch wood. No strange noises. In fact, it almost sounds better than it did before. The real test was a nice long ride down to a certain river.
Oh, that would be... I'm not going to do it, but it would be easy.
After that long ride, which also meant a couple of tanks of fuel to flush that out, I changed the oil once more and put on the other new oil filter. But I have to say, this ride was the pure definition of cathartic.